So let's now get some more insight into how the Bola Tinubu administration has fared in terms of the economy in the last 1 year. And we're being joined on the news at 10 by development economist Professor Kenife, who joins us from our Abuja studios. Great to have you on the news at 10, Professor.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right, let's get into it very quickly. Professor, how would you summarize the performance of the economy in the last 1 year?
3 levels: 1 at the international economic development level, then 2 on the macroeconomic level, and 3 at the sectoral level, where we must respect the ministers that are actually now subject to scrutiny of at the public space. Now, the key thing is, where were we 12 months ago? 12 months ago, Nigeria was in deep trouble. We were sick. The economy was sick, in an intensive unit, pushed to a cliff. And then now, 12 months later, it's come off that cliff. It's no longer in intensive unit. It's in a recovery position. Now, I would say that there are 2 ways to look at what has happened. First is that there are very, very positive reforms at the macroeconomic level that are actually yielding results. But there are weaknesses. Weaknesses when you look at this pervasive insecurity. We still haven't dealt a decisive blow to that, and it's scaring away investors. There's also challenges around the persistent negotiations with the labor, and I don't know what is going on there because I haven't seen the science in that negotiation. And then, of course, you have inflation that is gone completely out of control, but there is light at the end of that tunnel. On balance, I would say that the strength in many of the achievements on those reforms and the higher level of coordination between fiscal and monetary policies actually far outweigh the weaknesses that we have in all those 3 areas I've just mentioned: insecurity, inflation, and then also on wage increases debate.
All right, Prof. Subsidy is gone. That's what the president told us on his inauguration on May 29, 2023. How has that impacted the economy?
Well, the subsidy is like, beehive, call it, the president stirred the hornet's net. And that is really like what happens to a beehive. So that is what happened. And then there were unintended consequences. But that decision needed to be taken. And first of all, who was the first beneficiary is the state government. Their FAC revenue went from 700 billion to 1.2 billion, just like what happened to Buhari when he took office. He had to go and look for 600 billion to help the governors start paying salaries and all of that. So we've got that. We've got the governors under control in their territories. Then you also have to see about government revenue. You need resource to pursue, to generate more resources. Now, from a 7% revenue to GDP, we are now over 10% revenue to GDP. Government is now boasting of over 2 trillion naira a month. That is not a mean feat, but it shows you that there are some positive signals now, inflation, which has already been a big challenge, we are now seeing that even though, as at last month, all indicators, 5 of them, all showed a rise relative to 12 months. But when you look at month on month, all of them pointed down, so they all of them are heading down. So it will take a little while for you to now see that reflect on the general inflation figures. And we're looking at the figures that the runaway, of course, is the food inflation. And it's so surprising because the data, GDP data released a few days ago, is showing 0.18% growth rate in agriculture, which is suicide, because I don't know how you have a population of 3% and then you are growing food at 0.18%. So it shows you that emergency has to, we have to have a second look on the food crisis.
All right, so Professor, the IMF, that's the International Monetary Fund, is saying that subsidy is actually back. What are your thoughts on that one?
No, well, I mean, people are entitled to their views. I mean, you might as well say that subsidy on electricity is out or in. And then we are seeing 250% increase in electricity charge. So it's a moving target. That issue is a moving target. So I know that there are more information that we still need to get hold of. But the fact of the matter is that we are not spending $500 billion naira every month on what NNPC called under recovery. And secondly, we now have a much more organized and much more orchestrated approach to financing of the government budget. It's no longer the traditional, what you might call promissory note, give us money, we'll pay you in 5 years. Now, the Minister of Finance says, I'm not going to go that way. So I have to have cost-benefit analysis on anything that we're going to borrow. And then they switched over from debt financing to asset-based financing. Now, the significance of this is that we are no longer losing our sleep every month on what are we borrowing, are we able to pay salary, are we borrowing to pay salary? No, it has shifted. It's now about securitizing future revenue. You've seen that on crude, and then Africa is releasing some resources to us. You've seen that securitization on the gas revenue. You've also seen revenues, things coming in from India and all of that. All of them targeting assets. These are asset-based financing. And that's where we have to dip. That's where Murphy, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, has taken control. And we're moving in that positive direction, addressing the real liquidity and sweating our assets and generating that kind of liquidity that we require to have a much more balanced balance of trade and balance of payment and all of that stuff. But it takes a little while. Even the measures being taken by central bank, hiking the MPR rates, continuously hiking it. According to ECOWAS macroeconomic convergence criteria, one of them is single-digit inflation. The second one says you have to have a positive real interest rate. So how can you be having interest rate at about 23%, 25%, and then you have inflation at 33%? Who is going to come and give you their money 12 months later they've lost 10%? So you have to continue to see that hike.
We'll have to leave it at that, Professor Kenny Faye. Thank you so much for your thoughts on the News at 10. Thank you once again.